Holding Sefer Mishlei, Perek Chavbet, chapter 22. First pasuk, Nibchar Shem me'osher rav, mikesef u'mizahav chen tov. A name is chosen above great wealth, good favor over silver and gold. That's the translation here. What Shlomo Melech is pointing out over here is in the last chapter we mentioned that en chokhmah ve'en tevuna ve'en etzah neged Hashem. No matter how smart you are, no matter how prepared you are, if HaKadosh Baruch Hu's plans are different than our plans, not all the intelligence will help. No matter who's in charge, no matter what advice you have, Hashem's plan is the one that's going to take place. So he said that even though Chokhmah is something very special, and he's been talking about the value of Chokhmah all along, how important it is to be Chacham, to become knowledgeable, but all the knowledge in the world cannot help if Hashem's plan is different than our plans. Now he says that if Chokhmah cannot help one, if Chokhmah, which is good, cannot help one at all times, the more so money. Money is not as valuable as Chokhmah, and money for sure cannot help one, and does not have the same value when it comes to a good name. You may have heard the other pasuk that is also famous, Tov Shem Mishemen Tov, that a good name, a good reputation is better, is more valuable than a good oil. How long does the oil last? A good name lasts forever. A good name is something that you take with you. But it's more than that. A good name is something that you achieved on your own, whereas all the money in the world that one may have, it could be just his mazal, through the Yerusha, through an inheritance, or through some other means that he received the money. So here he begins to talk about the value of having a good name. That is something worth pursuing. That is a true accomplishment in one's life. That is worth more than all the silver and gold. Chen Tov, the same idea. Chen Tov is finding favor in people's eyes, people liking you. That is more precious than all the money in the world. Next pasuk, Ashir varash nivgashu oseh chulam Adonai. Also a very famous pasuk. A rich man and a poor man, nivgashu, here he calls it, they are visited upon, but the better translation is that they both meet each other. Oseh chulam Hashem, Hashem makes all of them. Hashem makes the rich, Hashem makes the poor. It is not the individual who made it himself. Whether one is rich or one is poor, it's not his chokhmah or the lack of chokhmah. It's not the college degree or the lack of a college degree. Here he points out clearly, Oseh kulam Hashem, everything is min hashamayim. Even though things are determined by the mazal, just about everything is determined by mazal, but the mazal itself is determined by Hashem. So this is a point that he mentions quite a bit in Kohelet as well. Don't be envious. There's no reason for you to be envious of others who have made it, who are more wealthy than you, who have more. Because first of all, that is from their mazal. It's not a true achievement. And it's not something to look up either, because it's not something that they're going to take with them after Me'aveh Esrim, after 120. Why should you be envious? What would you do with another $1 million? Would you be happier? Not necessarily. But people are jealous because they think that they would be happier, that they would be better off if they had more money, if they had this, if they had that. That's not something to pursue. As he emphasizes many, many times in Kohelet, Hevel avalim akol hevel, everything is a bunch of vanities and nonsense. It doesn't make sense to go after these shtuyot. It doesn't really bring happiness. It doesn't have any true value. It's meaningless. A good name is more precious than anything else. Good kids, a good wife, a good husband. These are things that one can definitely benefit from, and these are things that everybody is in agreement that if one has them, he's truly fortunate. With money, not necessarily. There are a lot of people that have lots of money and they're very depressed, right? They're not doing well health-wise. Their marriage has fallen apart. So what has all that money done for them? So money does not bring happiness. Money is not a true achievement. It's all part of the mazal. So when he says Ashir v'rash nivgashu oseh chulam Hashem, he's reminding us that first of all, these situations, the financial status of an individual is really min hashamayim, b'hashgacha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has decided, for whatever reason, who's going to be wealthy and who's going to be poor. That's the simple understanding of this pasuk. The other understanding is Ashir v'rash nifgashu. A rich man meets up with a poor man. The same rich man sometimes will end up being a poor man himself. In other words, wealth and poverty sometimes meet because all it is a galgal, like they call it here, the wheel of fortune. A wheel of fortune, sometimes we're up there, sometimes we're down. Some people have a more consistent mazal. From the day that began to work, they've had a career for 35 years, they're retired, they have a pension, they haven't had many lawsuits, they had a very, very simple lifestyle, not many ups and downs, not many tragedies, Baruch Hashem, and no major illnesses until the end of their life. It's a very, some would call it a monotonous type of life. But for some people it's great. That's all they want. Who wants ups and downs? Who wants major issues to deal with? Let's say you have a lawsuit and you win. But you've got, you know what it is to go through court, the aggravations, the lawyers, the chances of losing or winning. You know, so who wants all these issues to deal with in life? So some people have a simple life. Some people have a very, very, in Yiddish we would call it a very lebendige life. You know, a life full of many incidents. Yeah, many incidents that take up your time. You know, that's all mazal. So he says here that sometimes in one's own life you can have the two. You can have the good times, and you have the times that are not so good, not so comfortable. Because Ashir v'rash nifgashu, they can all meet up in one individual's life, different periods of time. When he did well many years ago, then he had a very hard 10 years. Then he went back. That also happens. Up, down, and then back up. All of that, kulam, all of these, oseh kulam Hashem. Hashem has put this together for whatever reason. It could be not the mazal, it could also be a gezerah, it could be a decree, it could be a kitrug, an accusation. There are many things that happen to people because of their ma'asim, because of their deeds. It's not the mazal that was written in stone the moment he was born. You know, Am Yisrael is me'al mazal. We can change our mazal for the better too, but it could be for the worse. If a person was blessed and he doesn't deserve it anymore, Hashem says, you know what, maybe I should take it away and give it to someone who does deserve it. So all of this, Oseh kulam Hashem, we must remember, and this is the proper hashgacha, and that everything is me'ashamayim. Very important point, because we forget that. We really think that our own efforts will bring wealth. If we don't work hard enough, we won't make it. We have to work 14 hours a day. No, you don't have to. You have to be normal. You don't compromise your family, your Torah learning, because you think you're going to make more money. And for sure don't compromise the Shabbat, because you're for sure not going to make it. You're just going to have it the worse, because there's no blessing with that which is made on Shabbat. So with having the proper hashkafa, Oseh kulam Hashem, everything is Hashamayim, it is easier to look at, you know, situations and understand that there's a cheshbon, why this person has so much, why that person has so much, and therefore once we understand it, there's no room for jealousy. A person who's jealous is because he feels he's entitled to something. He feels that other person should not have what he has. He feels that there's something unfair happening. There's no such a thing as unfairness. Obviously people can act unfairly. Human beings can act unfairly. That, yes. But in the end, whatever is meant to be is going to happen anyway. If somebody took away somebody else's money, okay? Let's say you have a shop on Beverly Boulevard, and you've been running this shop for 20 years. Comes along somebody, another Jew, and opens up the same kind of business across the street. Now there are halachot in Shulchan Aruch whether you can do that or not, depending on if the neighbor can accommodate too. But initially, one of them may say, hey, he's taking away my parnasah. No, so who said so? Where's your bitachon b'kadosh baruch Hu that parnasah is written not only from your mazal, but every Rosh Hashanah it's reviewed. The kadosh baruch Hu decides how much parnasah. And you know what? If he's going to take it from you, let's say he takes. Let's say he does take. You'll make it up some other way. There's a rich uncle who was thinking for a long time to give the money away to his niece, and now he changed his mind. He wants to give it to you. Who do you think made him change his mind? Kadosh Baruch Hu. Kadosh Baruch Hu says, I got to make up for his parnasah that somebody else took away. You see, most people do not know this, and they really lose sleep over these kind of things. If it's meant to be, no matter what we're going to do, it's not going to help. Right? We said last weekend, Chokhmah ben tevunah. If it's not meant to be, don't worry about it. Anybody who's worried, anybody who's over anxious, loses sleep over things, it's a lack of bitachon. It's a true lack of bitachon. If something is under your control, then of course you should worry about it because you're in charge of it. But the results of it, you're not in charge of the results. Hashem decides if it's going to succeed or if it's going to fail. So all these pesukim are intended not just to tell us a fact. They're intended to really strengthen one's emunah, one's bitachon, in realizing that many things are in the hands of Hashem, not in our hands. Next pasuk, Arum ra'a ra'a v'nistar uftaim averu v'ne'enashu. A cunning man, he calls Arum a cunning man. Okay, a pikeach, I would call him in Hebrew, saw harm and hid, but fools transgressed and were punished. A pikeach, a smart man, a cunning man, is cautious. There's a I guess we can call it a parable, a mashal. What is the difference in Hebrew between a chacham and a pikeach? Have you heard? Chacham is an intelligent man. Chacham. A pikeach is a cunning, is wise. It's more than just smart. Smart means, intelligent man means that if he's stuck in the mud, he knows how to get out of it. That's a chacham. He knows how to get out of a problem. You know what a pikeach is? He makes sure he doesn't get into the mud to begin with. Chacham can get himself out of the mud. Pikeach makes sure he doesn't get into the mud to begin with. Here he calls it arum. Arum, an arum ro'et hanolad. Rabbis tell us, Ezu chacham ro'et hanolad. Arum, in a way, is a very smart person. He judges every situation before he jumps into it, analyzes it. He doesn't want to make a mistake. If he sees something no good, something harmful, then he hides. He stays away. He maintains a distance. But fools, the petty or the kesil, avru v'ne'enashu, they transgress, they make the mistakes, and they get themselves into trouble. They are punished. The commentaries explain that we're talking about an example here, which I mentioned in the past, of something called docheket hasha'ah. Docheket hasha'ah means you see you're losing money, then why push it harder? It's like the example I gave you with Vegas. Guy goes to bet in the casino to play some game, and he loses his first $100 and says, you know what, I'm going to put some more money. When is he going to stop? You see you don't have mazal. So stop right away. One can say, more or less, if he has mazal or not. Stop. No. He continues. He pushes the hour. Don't push yourself too hard if you see that the trend right now is that you're losing. That every interview is not going through. Everything. Don't push yourself too hard because it could be that this is not meant for you to be. This is not. Maybe this job is not for you. Why get upset over it? Don't push too hard. Arum ra'a ra'a v'nistar. The cunning man sees that which is no good for him, and he stays away. He doesn't try to push it. Don't you get the hint they say in English? Don't they get the hint they don't want you? It's not for you. Right? But a kesil or a petty, the fools, avru v'ne'enashu, they just go ahead and push their luck harder, and therefore they get themselves into trouble. Pasuk Daled. Ekev anava yirat Adonai osher v'chavod v'chaim. Very important pasuk. Humility or humbleness is a midah that is very much extolled, very much praised in all the sefarim, the sifrei musar. Anava is something that one should pursue. Moshe Rabbeinu is known as Anav Mikol Adam. He was the most humblest man. Many great tzaddikim were especially known not necessarily for their chokhmah, for the books they wrote, but for their midot tovot, and especially the anava, which is not an easy midah to acquire. You're not born with it. Some people are of course, don't think highly of themselves, but anava is more than that. Anava, a person cannot think highly of himself, but neither does he think highly of the next guy. You know, that's no good. Anava is when a person doesn't think too much of himself, but he does admire others, he does look up to others. It's not an easy midah. It's a midah that requires a lot of work, and a lot of other midot, characteristics, need to be controlled or need to be conquered in order to achieve something called anava. So he says over here, you know what will happen as a result of anava? If you've acquired anava, ekev anava yirat Hashem, as a result of, or in the wake, as he says, of humility comes fear of Hashem. That is what leads. Yireh Hashem is a very, very powerful title to give somebody. To point to someone and say he's Yirei Elokim. There are various levels when it comes to fear of Hashem. There's something called Yirei Het. A person is afraid of sinning. Why is he afraid of sinning? He doesn't want to go to Gehenom. That's it. I like to give the example of somebody not speeding on the freeway. Why don't you speed? Well, why don't you speed? Tell me, would you like to speed? You'd like to get to Vegas in 3 hours, no?
Not necessarily.
No? But why don't you go fast?
I don't want to have a ticket.
That's all? Why wouldn't?
I also for the safety of my family.
Oh, okay. Now you're talking. See, if it's just not to get the ticket, that's one reason. But there's other people who don't want to speed because it's not safe.
Yeah.
That's a higher level of controlling oneself. What's the highest level of all? I don't go fast because I want to obey the law. Without giving other explanations, I want to obey the law. Same thing with Yirat Shamayim, Yirat Hashem. There's Yirat Chet, one is afraid of going to Gehenom. That's why he doesn't sin. One is afraid to commit a sin because he doesn't want to get his neshama soiled, stained. A little bit higher of a level. Then there's one who, how could I do this against Hashem? I love him so much. He's done so much for me. How could I do this against him? That's a Yirah mitoch ahava. At that level, Yirah goes together with ahava. There's a question as what's greater, fear or love? Everybody says, oh, love is better. Not necessarily. At the highest level of all, fear and love really go together. I love him because I fear him because I love him. In other words, how could I think of doing something against he or she, or whoever it is that you have a very strong relationship? How could I go against him or her, if it's a spouse, husband and wife, or two friends? How could I think of doing something against my own flesh, my own brother, my own sister, my own friend, my own husband, my own wife? How could I? If there's true love, there's true respect, then there is fear of doing that which will harm the relationship. See what I mean? So the fear, the yirah, and the ahava at that level are pretty much together. So here he says that the anava leads to the ultimate level of a true yirat Hashem, true yirei Elokim, where one is God-fearing for the real reason. And as a result of this humbleness, osher v'chavod v'chayim, he will also receive riches, honor, and life. Why does anava lead to riches, honor, and life? Well, first of all, anava, as a result of a person's humbleness, it helps him stay away from avon, from sin. That's number one. So that's why Ekev anava comes yirat Hashem. It will help him stay away from sin if he's a humble person. It helps. It's a tremendous building block that helps an individual in many areas, including maintaining a safe distance from sin. But also, osher v'chavod v'chayim. What does that have to do with anava? A person who is anav usually does not covet. Does everybody here know what the word covet mean? He does not desire. He has no interest in all the motarot, in all the excesses of life. He does not covet these things. They don't mean so much to him. Hu mistapek b'moat. He's very content. Whatever Hashem gave me, that's good enough. As a result of that, he has a normal life. He has a healthy life. He has chayim. He has no dagot, no worries. En lo anachot. Anachot is a very interesting word in Hebrew. I'm not sure how to translate anaha. When a person feels disappointed, he feels, but a sigh is more of a anaha for not for feeling bad about something. But there's an anaha which goes together with yagon ve'anaha. In other words, you feel terrible. It's a terrible feeling of disappointment, of being let down. That's all called anaha. In other words, I feel terrible that this happened. Hashem, it says by Hashem, when he had to destroy the world, bring the Mabul, over there, even though it's a little bit different, Vaynahem, in other words, that he felt bad that he created what he did, and now he has to destroy it. See what I mean? That's the idea, even though that there it's a little bit of a different concept, different word, but it's a similar idea. So a person who does not covet, does not want all these things, he does not have all those worries. He therefore will not have all the frustrations and aggravations, etc., etc. All these terrible feelings that people have of disappointment comes because they have certain expectations. A person who is anav, he has osher, v'chavod v'chaim. He will have true osher because he's sameach b'chelko. He will have a true chaim, and he will have kavod. In other words, people will respect him. He doesn't have to pursue this. That's one of the benefits of anava. Anava, and therefore, leads to a better life, to more contentment. Not just to Yirat Hashem, but even to the life itself, a healthier life. Just because you're humble, therefore, your expectations are less. It doesn't mean you shouldn't have any expectations. It just means that anything which is material, if you don't get it, you're not disappointed. You don't feel bad about it. Next pasuk, Tzinim pachim b'derech ikesh omer nafsho yirhak mehem. Here he translates it as troops and snares. What tzinim pachim literally mean are obstacles in the way. There could be obstacles b'derech ikesh, in the way of the perverse, and he who preserves his soul will distance himself from them. Shomer nafsho yirhak mehem. A lot of people want to take shortcuts. You know how you get into on the freeway and you see there's a lot of traffic. So you think you're going to beat the traffic, you're going to take a shortcut. You never take the side streets. And it ends up you didn't save any time by doing that, or worse. You came to a dead end and you have to go back in the circles until you... We sometimes think that we can take the shortcut to get to what we want to. If you want to get safely to your destination, take the route or route. Which one is it? Either way, okay. Route or route. Take the one that you are most comfortable with and you're most familiar with, and don't try to take shortcuts. Here he's not talking about freeways and routes, so he's talking about a derech ikesh. There are perverse ways. People want to make money fast. The crooked way. The derech ikesh. There are tzinim pachim. There are many obstacles in that way, many things that will go wrong. The shomer nafsho yirhak mehem, stay away from them. Be careful from doing anything the shortcut. Shortcut meaning here that it's not the right way to do it. There are many obstacles in the way. The rabbis use the exact same pasuk to discuss a completely different idea. The rabbis tell us tzinim pachim also mean colds and flus, or colds and fevers. Akol bidei shamayim, chutz mirat shamayim. Remember that? Everything is in the hands of heaven except for the fear of heaven. That's the free will. That's where we make choices of whether we want to be tzaddikim or rashaim. But there is an additional Gemara that says the same thing. Akol bidei shamayim, chutz mitzinim pachim, except for catching a cold. It's your fault if you go outside and catch a cold. You know why? Because you weren't wearing a sweater. You weren't taking care of yourself. In other words, if you are negligent in how you dress or in what you eat, guess what? It's your fault. Don't say mina shamayim. Hashem gave me a flu. No, you gave yourself a flu. It's not bidei shamayim. See what I mean? So the rabbis use the same pasuk of tzinim pachim to describe another area in life which we are responsible for, not Hashem, and that is the area of colds and flus. Yes.
So then does that mean that that's not a part of cleansing? If you get a cold.
No, it's one's negligence. 99% of the time.
So the rabbis use fast and like cut themselves and I don't know, roll themselves.
No, that's something else. That's already intentional tikkun. That's something else. That's a whole different idea. We're talking about somebody catching a cold. It could have just been his fault. He didn't dress well, right? He has temperature right now. You have to watch yourself because of the elements. That's all it is. So the rabbis tell us, be careful. That's up to you, whether you catch a cold or not. Next pasuk, we've come to a very important pasuk. I'd rather not say one of the most important pasukim in Mishlei because they're all important, but this is a very famous pasuk, and it's a very important pasuk because it's very relevant, and it's something that we have to understand very well. It's important as parents to have a clear understanding of what Shlomo Melech is about to tell us. Chanoch l'na'ar al pi darko, gam ki yaskin lo yasul mimena. Train a child according to his way. Even when he grows old, he will not turn away from it. That's a pretty good translation. The words are simple here, but there's a lot of meaning, a lot of depth to what he just says over here. Train a child according to his way. Even when he grows old, he will not turn away from it. What he's trying to say, the simple peshat, as the Rashi brings down here, whatever you give a child, good or bad, during the younger years, you should know something. Whatever he's going to get from you, good or bad, is going to stay with him for almost his entire life. The youth, the early years, are very impressionable. And whatever you give him, good or bad, is going to stay with him. So the first pirush, the first peshat here in this pasuk is, he's not telling us good or bad. It's either one. Chanoch lanar al pi darko, whatever you're going to give him, is going to stay with him. That's number one. The second way of understanding this pasuk is the more acceptable one. It's not talking about bad or good. It's talking about his chokhmah. Every child is different. Some mature earlier, some mature later, some are more gifted. Chanoch lanar lefi chokhmato. You should guide the child according to how much he can handle. Every child can handle different amounts. You can't expect the same from one child as you can expect from the other. They both may have the same parents, but each one is a different world in nature, in capabilities, and interests. So according to his chokhmah, that is how you should guide him in perfecting himself, in doing the mitzvot. Another point that is very clear over here is that when we do train, we want to get a head start, an early start. The younger you start to train a child with whatever it is that you're training, the better it is for the child. The chances are better that it will remain, it will stick to him, because it was early on impressed on him. So the earlier on you start, the better it is, whether it's midot or whether it's chokhmah. And that is why, of course, in Judaism, there is an important emphasis on teaching Torah as early as possible, as soon as the child can speak. Torah tzivalanu Moshe Morasha Kilat Yaakov. We teach him the Shema Yisrael. We imbue him with emunah. The sooner the better. Later on, shasechel mitbashel, as we say, when the mind becomes more mature, it is much more difficult to teach him. It's much more difficult to impress upon him, and it's for sure more difficult the older a person gets to change his mind. And the same is true with languages. Learning languages can be a lot of fun. And our linguists say that all children up to the age of 10 learn very quickly, and all languages are alike. Chinese is the same as Spanish. Even though Spanish you might claim today is easier, for you it's easier today than Chinese. But up to the age of 10, a child absorbs easily. He hears, he mimics, he repeats, and to him it makes no difference, almost any language. As long as, of course, you don't teach him how to read and write Chinese, that's a whole different story. That even adult Chinese don't all know all the characters, all the pictograms. There's thousands of them. But up to the age of 10, the child is impressionable, he picks up very quickly, and that's the time to give him as much as you can. Another point that belongs in this pasuk is what we say in Pirkei Avot. In Pirkei Avot we see that every age is different. You learn Chumash at one age, you learn Mishnah at a different age, you learn Gemara at a different age, you get married at a later age. Don't jump to Kabbalah before you go to Chumash, before you go to Halakha. Everything has its time. A child can only grasp so much. Give him what he can grasp at his level, at his age. Don't give him the earlier, later. Give him everything at the right time. Another idea in this pasuk, Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Darko, what is his way? His way is his talents. According to his talents, what does that mean? You may have a very strong child. You may have a very weak child. You cannot force the weak child in the same way that you're pushing the stronger child. So here he's telling us, al pi darko, you have to be very careful, to be soft, to be gentle, to go along with the child according to his true abilities. Not necessarily, because what did we just say before? We just said right now, give the child according to his age. Well, what about if he's not ready? And even though he's 10 years old, so what? He's not capable. Don't force it just because he's 10 years old. He should know this and this, because the rest of the class knows. No? A lot of teachers like to write on their report card, not conforming or not to grade. What is that? No. Not to grade level or something like that. Below grade level or below, the expectations that they have from him at this age. But maybe that's all he can. If you know for sure he can do more, you can write that. But not necessarily can every child do what all the other classmates are doing. So the commentators explain, one is a teacher or a parent, do not insist, do not demand that all children be the same, that all be the same achievers. Because even though he's holding it at a certain age, it's really according to his abilities that he should perform, much more than according to the age. And therefore, if one has two kinds of kids, and one is more of a learner, then encourage him to the way of Torah. Definitely don't discourage a child who's very strong in Torah. You got to become a doctor. No. If you see a child is very strong in Torah, he can be one of the greatest rabbis in the Jewish nation. Why discourage him? If that's his forte. If you see another child who's more geared to working, he wants to work, he wants to be an architect, he wants to be an engineer, he wants to be a lawyer, and he's good at that, and that's what is pulling him, then of course you can guide him to that. You can't expect all the children to be the same, and you definitely should not force a child to do something that is really against his nature. Some commentaries put a negative twist to this pasuk. What's the negative twist? Chanoch lanar al pi darko. If you give the child whatever he wants, gam ki yaskin lo yasur mimeno, then even when he becomes old, the fact that you gave him what he wants, it will stay with him. In other words, don't do that. Don't do it al pi darko, according to what the child wants. That's very dangerous. The Gaon of Vilna says something very special, something very interesting. Most commentaries don't talk about it, but because the ideas are similar, but he sheds a little bit more light on astrology. In this pasuk over here, this particular pasuk, he says here we're talking about the mazalot, al pi darko, according to the mazal of the child. You can have a child, as the Gemara says, who was born with a lot of Martian influence. You probably never heard of that term, unless you studied astrologer. A lot of Mars. You know what Mars does to a person? Ma'adim. If somebody has a lot of Mars, he has a tendency to get very angry. He can easily kill. And the rabbis tell us, what should you do with a child who has a lot of emphasis on Ma'adim? Teach him to become a shohet. Let him slaughter animals and not human beings. Or let him become a mohel. Brit Milah, so you can see the blood there. Yeah, channel that energy to something good. Yeah, everybody has a different kind of mazal, and when people have an emphasis on one thing, they are pretty much attracted to do something, like that. Some people are extremely compassionate. They devote their lives, like Mother Teresa, right? To the poor people. That kind of a nature. And there's other people who, of course, want to do other things, that have nothing to do with helping people, but helping themselves. Yeah, they're very selfish because there's an emphasis on the ego, on being self-centered, on accomplishments, on reaching the top. Very ambitious people, and sometimes people, because they're so ambitious, they trample on others. They don't care. They have to get to the top. They step on people on the way to the top. Different kinds of people. So the Gaon of Vilna says like this: Chanoch lanar al pi darko. Channel the energy of your child according to his mazal, according to his temperament, according to what you see him fit. Not everybody's an expert in this, so it's hard to know what every child is good for. And what the commentaries tell us is that therefore you have to tune in a little bit and be a little bit more sensitive in trying to see what is really best for your child. In other words, even though we may not know exactly, but we should tune in. This pasuk is telling us tune in a little bit more and be more sensitive. Don't force a child against his nature. Try to study him, see what he's really good for, and that's the way you should guide him, based on his darko, based on his level of comprehension, based on his level of maturity, based on his interest, on his talent, and on his capabilities. That's what darko really means. And if you do so properly at the right time, early on, then it will stay with him. All that you have invested, all that you have given him, will be there with him later on. And this is a point that we said before. The reason why Shlomo Melech says Gam ki yaskin lo yasur is because we may be disappointed. At some time a child may go like this. He may turn away, and you say to yourself, wait a minute, I worked so hard. Don't worry about it. If you gave him a lot in his early years, he will make a U-turn at some point. He still has it in his bank account. He still has it in memory. All that he has learned in his childhood, years. So gam ki yaskin, lo yasumeno, when he turns older, it will still be there with him. Therefore, it's never a good idea to give up on anybody. Whatever you give him is going to remain with him. He may not use it now, but it's in the memory bank. It may come back later. It will stay with him forever. Next pasuk. Ashir berashim yimshol ve'eved loveh leish malveh. A rich man will rule over the poor, and the borrower is a slave to a lender. If you borrow money, guess what? You're a slave. You're a slave to the lender. You have to make payments every month. You're like a slave. Why is he telling us this? Just like Ashir berashim yimshol, just like a rich man rules over the poor. He gives the money, he doesn't give the money, he's more in control than they are. In the same way, a malveh rules over the loveh, a lender rules over the borrower. A borrower is like a slave to the lender. Because of this, don't borrow if you can help it. Don't borrow money. Tistapek b'muat, be happy with what you have. And if you can avoid borrowing or asking favors from people, you're better off. Otherwise, you're like a slave. You owe him something because he gave you something. That's basically the idea of what he's trying to express over here. That it's just a fact. People who lent you money, people who did you a favor, you're like indebted to them. And it doesn't feel good either to owe something to someone. It feels great when you finish paying off your mortgage. You're finished with it. You're free. Next pasuk. Zore'a avla yiktzor aven v'shevet evrato yichle. He who sows injustice will reap violence, and the rod of his wrath will fail. In simpler English, Zore'a avla yiktzor aven. Whatever you sow, that is what you reap. In other words, whatever you invest, that's what you will get in return. And whoever is Zore'a avla, whoever sows injustice, he treats people not nicely, he cheats people, he does terrible things to people. He's Zore'a, he has sowed discontent, basically. Yiktzor aven. Or as the other saying goes in English, you get what basically what you invested. In other words, whatever you invested, whatever you've done to others, that's what you will get in return. That is the meaning of Zore'a avla, Yiktzor aven. And if a person invests or sows, plants injustice, the way he deals with other people, that's what he's going to get in return. That's how people will mistreat him. V'shevet evrato yichle. That's very interesting. The second term in the pasuk is that the shevet, the rod of his wrath will fail. The rod of his wrath. In other words, he's been mistreating people, he's been abusing people. At some point, that koach, that force that he had, that position, will fail. Rabbis tell us that what are we talking about over here? We're talking about hamalvim beribit, nichsehem itmotetin. Those who lend money with charging interest to other Jews, in the end, they will lose their property. They will lose their money. That shevet evrato, that rod which they use to control others and to abuse others, it will fail. Zitmotet lahem. In other words, they won't succeed for too long. And as you know, the charging repeat is a tremendous sin. It's a very serious offense. Very difficult to do teshuvah on. You have to be very careful from not being involved in any transaction where there's interest being charged, unless it's, of course, a business loan where there is a heter iska written to make it kasher according to the halacha. But that is, of course, more complicated, and we don't have time to discuss how that works.
But 95% of the business in Iran is interest, the money. Everybody's making money.
Right, but it makes no difference. It all depends on what the money is for. If Reuven comes and tells Shimon, I'm making a brit milah for my son, I want to have a seudah, the caterer is going to charge me $750 to make my seudah, to have a little bit of bagels, lox, cream cheese, right? Can you give me a $750? It's a suit to charge him interest for that, because that's a chesed. But if Reuven comes to Shimon, Reuven tells Shimon, there is a 12-unit apartment building that is being auctioned. Can you lend me? I need to have cash, $200,000. So Shimon is entitled to be a partner in that, in the gain. So his interest, or his charge, or his compensation, whatever it may be, for the lending the money, can be done in a kosher way, because that's not a chesed. He wants to make money, so do I. See, so it all depends how it's done and what's the purpose. But you have to be careful. If a Jew needs a loan for a mitzvah, for something, a chesed that he needs, there's no heter whatsoever to charge interest with that. On the contrary, it's a big avon. It's a business that can be a way to do it kasher. Next pasuk, Tov ayin hu yevorach ki natan milachmo ladal. Very beautiful pasuk. He who has a generous eye will be blessed, for he gave of his bread to the poor. Tov ayin. Tov ayin, you will not see this term used a lot. This is a very special term. One who has a good eye. The only thing that I can think, or generous eye, the only thing that comes close to it is the opposite. And whoever has an ayin ra'ah, an evil eye. What does it mean to have an evil eye? You know what jealousy means? Jealousy means you want to have what the other person has. What's tsar ayin or ayin ra'ah? You don't want that guy to have what he has. It's not that you want it for yourself. You don't want him to be happy. There are people like that. Yeah, there are people like that. They don't have a tov ayin, a good eye. In Hebrew we say, lo yocholim lefargen, what the other person has. They don't feel good that the other person is doing well. Tov ayin, a person who has a generous, good eye, he will be blessed. For he gave of his bread to the poor. What does that mean? Even if he has barely food himself, you want a description of a tov ayin, of a truly generous person? Even if he only has a little bit of bread, from his own bread he gives to others. You see, it's one thing when a person has a lot of money and he gives tzedakah. But if he has just a little bit and he gives, that's a tov ayin. Tov ayin is reserved for those people who are truly generous. And who's truly generous? From his own bread. That is why the rabbis tell us, afilu aniya mitparnes min tzedakah. Even a poor man who himself is receiving tzedakah needs to fulfill the mitzvah of giving tzedakah to those who need to. Just because he's poor, he's not exempt. That's the generous eye that one needs to adopt. To be generous means to give, even if you just have a little bit, to share with others. Rabbis tell us that on this pasuk, Al tikri yevorach ela yevarech. Who are we talking about? We're talking about giving a kos shel bracha. You're about to make birkat hamazon. There's 10 people. You're going to say birkat hamazon with the kos shel bracha. Who's going to make the bracha? Give it to the person who's a tov ayin. He deserves to bless others. He's a generous man. Let him bless. A person who has a good eye, a generous eye. Commentaries also tell us that Shlomo Melech here is talking to the rich man, and he's telling him like follows: Tov ayin hu yevorach, ki natam melachmo ladal. Because you have given from your bread to the poor, you will be blessed, in a sense. You rich man, you think you're doing the poor man a favor? You should realize that the poor man does more of a favor to you than you do to the poor man. The rich man takes all this credit. He's helped the poor. Commentaries explain that the rich man does not realize that the poor man is doing the rich man more of a favor than the rich man is doing the poor man. As the Zohar says, it could be that knock on the door of a poor man asking for some money will save a person's life. He's sending, the Zohar says, Hashem is sending you a matana, a gift. Your attitude should be that this is a gift, the opportunity to do tzedakah. So the poor man is doing you more of a favor than you're doing the poor man. Next pasuk, Garesh letz v'yetzeh madon v'yishbot din v'kalon. Banish a scorner, eliminate him, get rid of him, don't befriend him. A scorner is a person who's not a serious individual. You don't want to befriend him, because as a result of having scorners and people who are not serious, who are always making fun, that brings to merivot, to all sorts of fights, and that leads to shame. As he says over here, banish a scorner and quarrel will depart, and litigation and disgrace will cease. The moment you remove these bad elements from amongst us, we're better off, because there's troublemakers out there. There are people who are letzim, scorners, making fun, not serious, and they just cause a lot of trouble. Garesh letz, therefore, he's telling us, don't befriend him, eliminate him. Don't stick around such people, and you'll be better off. You'll be avoiding a lot of trouble, a lot of shame and scandals that will come out of this person's company. In the Sefer Hasidim, I believe he brings down something very significant that applies to educators. And this is a very difficult situation. What if you are a teacher running a class, you have 10 students, and one of them is a troublemaker, and you're in a dilemma. If you remove him from the class, he may not go to any good school. But if you keep him in the class, he's going to be a terrible influence over the other kids. What are you going to do? If he's going to be a very bad influence, you have to remove him from the class. Shelo yikalkel. It's difficult to do. It's a big dilemma. Many educators have this problem from time to time. What do we do with this kid? If we let him out of this class, out of the school, he's going to go to public school. He's going to go with goyim. He's going to get worse. Yeah, but we cannot ruin the whole class just because we have to consider his situation. If we know that the chances are high that he will ruin everybody else, he has to leave. Garesh letz. Obviously, you try whatever you can before you come to that point. You don't give up, but you may need to sacrifice him in order to save the rest of the class. Next pasuk is a very interesting pasuk talking about what is true friendship. Pasuk Yud Aleph. Ohev tehor lev chen sefatav ra'eu melech. A little bit difficult to understand. He translates it over here like this. He who loves one pure of heart, with charm on his lips, the king is his friend. Very difficult to understand. But this is what it means. One interpretation is as follows. Ohev tehor lev chen sefatav. A true friend is a friend that has a pure heart, who likes you not because of something that you have, as far as an interest, money and the like, but likes you because of your qualities. He's out there to help you. He's out there because he's concerned about you. He wants to be with you. In other words, a true, what we call in fancy English, altruistic love. Altruistic means ahava shelo tluya v'davar, platonic love. That is ohev tehor lev. The heart is pure. And if the heart is pure, then the love is pure. Why does he say a pure heart? Because a person cannot truly love another individual, truly love, unless he has a pure heart, unless he himself is an honest person, a straight person. As the commentaries explain, tehor lev means honest, pure. He has that kind of a heart, so therefore he can be pure with someone else. A person cannot have a pure, loving relationship unless he has a pure heart. If his heart is not pure, then how could he extend a pure? In other words, you follow me? That is the meaning over here of ohev tehor lev chen sefatav. Chen sefatav means with charm on his lips. In other words, people will like him. He will have charm because they will be able to see that he's for real, that he means well, that he's a true friend. And re'eu melech, his king is his friend. A friend wants to, a king wants to have such a friend, a person that he can rely on. Commentators tell us re'eu means also Kadosh Baruch Hu, that Kadosh Baruch Hu loves these people who are pure at heart. That is the other idea here, that Hashem likes those who are pure at heart. The other commentaries tell us that he's talking about ohev tehor lev. These are the individuals that we should like. We should not like the letzim. We should like those who have a pure heart. That's another interpretation. It's a very interesting point, that in order to be able to truly be friends with someone else, one has to have a pure heart. If one does not have a pure heart, it's not possible for him to fully give of himself to another individual. Next pasuk. The eyes of Hashem preserve knowledge, and he will frustrate the words of a treacherous man. Simple interpretation over here means that Hashem protects all those who are chachamim, who are knowledgeable, that they shouldn't come to any mistakes, because there are always people out there who try to frustrate others' plans, who try to put an obstacle in the way. So Inei Hashem natzeru da'at. Hashem protects all those who have the da'at. V'salev divrei boged, and he will frustrate the words of a treacherous man. In other words, we have to have bitachon in HaKadosh Baruch Hu, not to be afraid, and do the right thing, because Hashem will protect those who have da'at. The Chovat HaLevavot, based on something the Chovat HaLevavot says, there's a very interesting explanation to this pasuk. The Chovat HaLevavot says that whoever Hashem blessed that which he has written or spoken should be publicized all over the world, it is a matana from Hashem. It's a zechut, a merit from Hashem. Not everybody has the zechut that his words, written or spoken, should be publicized all over the world. The Chobat HaLevavot says whoever's words were publicized in the form of a book and became known to people, that is a zechut, sheheniklo Hashem, something that Kadosh Baruch Hu granted him. And that is a meaning perhaps in this pasuk too. Einei Hashem natzeru dat, it is a Kadosh Baruch Hu preserves that wisdom, that publicizes it, that makes it known to people. That is a tremendous zechut. Not everybody has it. People have spent many years composing a sefer, writing something, and their thoughts and that which was written was lost, burnt, never made it to the printing press. And some have had more of a zechut to have their words written and publicized. It's a zechut from Hashem if the words get out and are made public. Last pasuk is also a very important pasuk, extremely important pasuk, talking about a lazy man again. Amar atzel ari b'chutz b'toch rechovot eratzeach. The lazy man says, there's a lion outside. I can't go to the shiur. I can't go to the class. There's a lion outside. I will be murdered in the middle of the street. It sounds funny, but what is he talking about? He's talking about excuses. People can come up with all sorts of excuses. Oh, there's no subway today. There's too much snow outside. I'm tired. Millions of excuses. Where do the excuses come from? Excuses come because the mind works like an attorney to try to justify and rationalize, and as a result of that, because people have various midot and various desires, they influence the sechel too, and therefore they tell the sechel what to think and how to think, and that's where an excuse comes from. An excuse therefore stems from one's ta'avot that influence the sechel, and therefore a person comes up with an excuse. How does he justify? Because the sechel has to justify it. So that the excuse is the sechel being influenced by the ta'avot, what you really want to do. And of course, the laziness is one of those terrible midot that will come up with many excuses. And the commentaries explain that perhaps what Shlomo Melech is also adding over here, that there's not just an excuse, he's actually telling us by giving the example of a lion is in the street, I will get hurt, that really, psychologically, the lazy man suffers from a certain feeble heart, from a certain weakness, that he doesn't believe enough in himself. Try to figure out this lazy man. What is it? Where does laziness come from? Don't you realize you're going to make money, you're going to accomplish this and this, you're going to do this and that? There's a certain weakness in his nature. Whereas a person who has zrizut, who's diligent, that stems from gvura, that stems from strength. Other commentaries tell us something incredible here. They tell us that you want to know about the atzel? You want to know about this lazy man who's telling you that there's a lion outside? He's not saying a lie. Otherwise he'd be called a liar. Shlomo Melech doesn't call him a shakran. What is he trying to teach us? He's trying to teach us that an atzel, an individual who's lazy, simply is an individual shelo rotze litgaber al michsholim. He does not want to overpower obstacles. There's something just a little bit too difficult, he doesn't want to fight. He's not a fighter. And in order to survive as a Jew, in order to do well in life, you have to fight. You have to fight, as long as you fight correctly, obviously according to the Torah, with the right midot. But you can't just sit back and do anything. You have to fight. A person who doesn't fight becomes lazy. A person who becomes lazy doesn't accomplish anything. So here that Atzel is saying the truth. But it's sad. What he's really revealing to us is that he doesn't want to fight. Once it becomes too difficult, he doesn't want to do it. We have to encourage children, we have to encourage ourselves that even though something may be a little difficult, it doesn't mean we can't do it. If there's a true will, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu will help us accomplish it, B'ezrat Hashem.